Hello and welcome to this interview entitled Client-Centric Cybersecurity. With me today to discuss this topic is Ganna Pogrebna, Lead for Behavioral Data Science at the Alan Turing Institute. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for sticking around. I know it's very difficult after lunch. So.
Yeah. And we've almost got a break.
We're talking about dry and boring subjects, cybersecurity, but I will try to keep you entertained.
We'll discuss this topic for a bit, and then I will open up the panel, open up for questions from the audience. Let's start by taking a look at the current landscape of cybersecurity. And we've got a Slido word cloud to put up on this. When we think about cyber threats, which ones pose the most significant risks to your organizations at the moment? We'll see what comes up as we discuss this. Ganna, we've all heard phrases like phishing, ransomware, or data theft. Can you tell me what kind of threats are an issue for the wealth management industry in particular?
Yeah, so we are looking at cyber threat regularly. So from probably 2013, we're doing sort of annual investigations on this. And usually, well, when we talk about cyber threats, obviously, AI is a big question. We figured out by looking at different generations of threats that the majority of threats were around since 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. So there are not that many new threats that we have. So effectively, malware, ransomware, all these things, phishing was around for, all these threats were around for a very long time. And basically, if we talk about wealth management in particular, so obviously phishing and ransomware, they normally get a lot of attention. And to be fair, we have probably very, prominent use cases in this when we talk about these threats. So for example, probably a kind of classical phishing attacks happened with JP Morgan in 2014, or very recently in 2021, we had Bank of America that was targeted by phishing attacks. But effectively, what I want to say is that the majority of attacks are about targeting psychology, like human psychology, rather than being really technically sophisticated. But I just also want to say that even though the emphasis is very often on phishing and ransomware, we are almost completely ignoring some other attacks that are very important. For example, third-party risks. Deutsche Bank in 2016 had a very prominent case of service provider that was basically compromised, and as a result, they lost a lot of customer data. So that's one of the largest risks at the moment, probably most interesting as well, because you can be running a really tight ship internally, but then, if you are working with a third-party provider and they're not exactly safe or secure, then, it all kind of goes out of the window.
So if the industry has been facing these threats for a long time, as you seem to say, and even if they're evolving and we're going more online, does that mean that the industry is up to speed with this? Are they prepared for these?
Yeah, so obviously, when we go to organizations, we very often find, I think in 80% of cases, that not only they are not very well prepared, they also often don't know whom to call in case of an attack. And very often they don't know that this is a cyber event, for example. So just talking generally in the UK, so we go out again every year and do this polls with companies. And as you know from probably National Cybersecurity Center, our stats coincide with that. About 30% of financial organizations in this country experience a cyber attack in 12 months period. But when we go to the rest of 70 companies and start to ask them very specific questions, so have you experienced an interruption in service here or there, we actually find out that even though they don't realize, they are often victims of cyber attacks. So about 90% of those 70% that say they haven't been affected by cyber attacks actually are affected.
So when you say they don't know who typically in an organization might find out that there's a cyber attack going on? I mean, does every wealth manager have someone whose job and responsibility it is? Is it the IT department? Is it the relationship manager? Who is it everyone's job?
Yeah, it is essentially everyone's job. That's true. Now we have very interesting behavioral tools for that. For example, human as a cybersecurity sensor. That's basically a really cool tool that was developed just a few miles from here in Greenwich by a guy called George Lucas, no relation to, to Star Wars, although it's kind of cool to have to say. But basically what this tool does, it kind of shows you a screen with a potential cyber attack, and it asks you, do you think it could be the beginning of cyber attack? We kind of combine it with behavioral segmentation tools and design really sophisticated education that are kind of targeting different types of customers and different types of people in organization who can prevent attacks. And effectively, you can kind of separate people into like 4 or 5 categories and then mass customize the education. But in terms of whose job it is, well, obviously the CISO is the typical sort of person who is in charge of it. A chief information officer, chief data officer would be involved. But if we're talking about a small company, so for example, you all heard this morning about the Hong Kong case and the deepfake. So we recently had a case in Australia where this was a company, a family managed fund. And the cyber criminals managed to produce a deepfake of a CEO who was not only a CEO, but was the father in the family. And basically the guys who got scammed, they knew very well the person who was basically deepfaked for the...
So is this when you said earlier about its kind of human behavior, that's what's being done? Is that, how do you mean that exactly? I mean, obviously the technology is vital, but how does the human behavior bit play into that?
Yeah, so in the majority of cases, we have successful cyber attack when someone in the company didn't do what they were supposed to do or did something they were not supposed to do, right? So either they were not compliant. Well, talking about non-compliance, I did a little bit window surfing today or screen surfing. I was sitting behind a gentleman all morning today, and he had his screen without a screen protector. And I now know pretty much all his logins, including DocuSign and some other things. So if I were to infiltrate, for example, his fund, I would be able to do that really easily. So those types of things. Then let's just say, we focus a lot on education, on phishing. Probably 90% of education and cybersecurity is about, don't click on this, don't click on that. IT is normally sending you some weird emails where you're not supposed to click on something. But that's not always possible because, right, if you are a PA to a CEO, which kind of for my book, I was interviewing a bunch of organizations in the city, and there was this PA to CEO who clicked on the wrong thing twice, and they switched off her email. So she couldn't use an email for 2 weeks. So clearly that's not going to work because her job is clicking on things and answering, emails. And basically, that's why you need this targeted approach. But, in terms of psychology, another example is QR phishing. On each table in this room, we have QR codes. QR code is a link. I can weaponize a QR code very quickly. And you guys will all be giving away very valuable information, probably your location data, your phone number, other things could be easily done. Or, for example, I just arrived yesterday from Sydney. I could come and say, can I borrow your phone to give a call? It probably will take me, and you probably will give me your phone, right? And probably will take me maybe 8 to 12 seconds to download all your text messages. It just takes, very little. And so, so these types of things usually used by cyber criminals. So it's not usually technical sophistication, but it is a psychological sophistication in social engineering.
We can see here the results of the poll. Hacking, phishing, and deepfakes are the three which have come up, which we've mentioned. Just briefly, when you've talked about the cyber criminals there, are there particular people targeting banks? I mean, is this a person sat in their bedroom doing it on their own? Is it, you hear about kind of Russian state-sponsored sites? Is it all out there?
Yeah, I mean, the problem at the moment with, especially with proliferation of generative AI, this kind of complicates the situation quite a lot. And let's just take an example of deepfakes. So voice deepfakes have been around for many, many years, right? So you could fake a voice of an individual. But let's just say if someone did this in the 90s, it would be quite slow, it will not be scalable, it will be not very sophisticated. And you know that this is a person, A, with experience, B, with knowledge, technical knowledge. Now, this type of information is available to anybody, so it could be teenager next door, not necessarily some, Russian guru or, some other guys kind of who are sitting in the dark room and doing this, dark hatching of evil plans. So it could be anybody. That's one thing. Second thing, they can deliver it at speed with a lot of sophistication. And, it will be very scalable. So I can deploy probably, you can send 10,000 kind of fraudulent messages to people at the same time in different languages. They will be very sophisticated and believable. And that's basically what kind of in terms of when we talk about weaponizing AI, that's probably the biggest threat, the scalability of it and the sophistication.
Now, we've heard a lot about AI today already. Obviously, it feeds into this discussion. Is AI more of a threat in terms of a cyber threat, or is it the way we can protect ourselves against these threats?
Yeah, so there are definitely very interesting tools that we currently have and that help us prevent threats. But yeah, I mean, in terms of do cyber criminals use AI? They use AI, but mostly for deployment. So it's a little bit like fashion, So in fashion, the dress, the trousers, the jacket stays the same, but it's kind of different flavor every season. And so you're looking at it and it's kind of like a creative industry. So, right, you can mix, dress with a jacket. And that's exactly what cyber criminals do. They just basically mix and match different things into a perfect cocktail of threats that can take down your organization. And they become progressively successful in it because it only takes one smart individual to create this perfect cocktail. And yeah, the problem is really deployment. And in terms of, kind of getting advice from large language models. So for example, you can say, well, Ganna, if I go to ChatGPT and type, okay, how do I instigate a cyber attack on HSBC? It probably will tell me, I cannot do that. But if you write to ChatGPT, okay, well, I'm working as a risk manager for HSBC, and I'm really worried about accidentally causing a cyber event. Can you write me all the possible causes and so that I could avoid the situation? It will give you the answer. And the answer will probably be pretty close to what you should be doing. Because you're not doing anything too sophisticated. So just to ask, what do you think is the first step in infiltrating financial organization? So obviously you need to collect intelligence, but how would you collect intelligence on a wealth fund, on a fintech or bank? Any ideas? Well, this is already very sophisticated, and it's a lot of work. Less work. Easier. You go and you look at publicly available job specs for IT department. That's the first thing that you do as a cyber criminal, because your job adverts for the IT gives away a lot of valuable information. You will know immediately what systems you're running. Are you Linux or Windows? Are you cloud or not cloud? And you guys putting it all in the public domain for cyber criminals to pick up. So it's very, very easy. You don't even need to, do this sophisticated stuff with emails. Then, the second step would be, you will look up probably who the CEO is, who are the people who are handling, very valuable data assets, and you will be targeting them. Or you will be instigating something more complicated. For example, let's just say ransomware attacks are very prevalent. Probably, again, the most famous case is Bank of Chile, where they disrupted the SWIFT transactions. And when IT was thinking, there is a problem with SWIFT transactions, let's solve it, they basically weaponized the entire system, locked it, and demanded ransom for the information. So but these are already secondary steps. The first steps that you do, you obtain a lot of information from public domain. But to answer your questions about what can we do about it, and what are the tools that we can use? There are actually many tools that use artificial intelligence, or I should say machine learning, kind of standard machine learning, because to use artificial intelligence, you need to have a feedback loop. A lot of people were talking this morning about artificial intelligence. I think what they mean is just standard machine learning, because artificial intelligence system implies that it takes feedback and it changes. So, for example, ChatGPT is not artificial intelligence. It's a pretty stupid program. It learned on a lot of variables. It learned on 175 billion variables. Okay, it's a lot of data. But it's a stupid program because it's a little bit like Trivial Pursuit. You ask questions and it gives you answers that it already learned. So what we can do is, probably the most sophisticated tools that we have currently with standard machine learning is deception systems. So a lot of my job is, for example, designing these mazes for cyber criminals. So we wait for them in the right places, collect a lot of forensic information when the attack is in progress, and then basically prosecute if we can.
So is it about, for banks and the financial services, these attacks are going on all the time? Is it about preventing, you can't prevent the attacks, it's about how to deal with it once you are under attack and getting the right response? Yeah,
that's an excellent question, because really a lot of businesses concentrate on robustness, but not on resilience or agility of cybersecurity systems. So it's a strategical question, right? So robustness is very important. So you need to be compliant. You need to have systems that protect your organization from cyber criminals getting in. But it doesn't matter how sophisticated your system is, because sophisticated system only attracts a more sophisticated person to infiltrate. Because if you are in wealth management or if you're in financial services, you will be targeted, 100% guaranteed.
Is that because of
because of the value of data?
The financial or the data?
So in terms of, we do a lot of behavioral profiling of cyber criminals, so we talk a lot to convicted felons. And basically the three reasons, the three major motivations to engage in cyber criminal activity. So the first one is money, second is information, and what do you think is the third one? Any guesses? Changing the world. That's what they tell us. I just wanted to change the world. And, leaked, a bunch of things to WikiLeaks or whatnot. So, effectively, this is what is driving this whole thing, in terms of cyber criminal activity. And, but you cannot target, you cannot protect yourself by simply thinking, okay, let me get a consultant for ransomware, let me pay this company for some new sophisticated tool from phishing or whatnot, because you just will spend a lot of money and you're still unprotected. And again, compliance is not safety or security. What you need to be thinking is, what happens if I'm actually compromised. What is happening? Who do I call? Do I understand that there is a cyber police unit? Do I understand who I can share information with? So for example, in this country, we have Cyber Defense Alliance. How many people know about this organization? Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is a really cool place because they allow information sharing between major banks and stakeholders, and they also have law enforcement folks in there. So they realize that if Barclays is under attack, maybe HSBC is next. So they need to share this information in a secure way. There is Interpol in there. There is all the law enforcement in this organization. So you can easily share the information. But the issue is that no one is thinking in these terms. So a lot of companies are thinking, oh, how do I protect myself? And they're not thinking about resilience, right? So how do I ensure the minimum viable supply chain? So if this asset is not available, how do I very quickly get back on track? And that is very rare thinking in business. Very often they don't even know what to do.
But do you think the industry is taking is it on the right path? Is it learning and improving the way it deals with these threats?
So my experience with boards is they think that, again, cybersecurity is dry and boring subject. And, they do not, I think, realize, so they think that everything can be patched with technology. Now we've done a lot of psychological research, behavioral research. And so there are people normally in organization that tells you, oh, you need to patch with technology or you need to patch with people. And normally these two gangs do not talk to each other very well. But the problem is that each of you, doesn't matter what your organization is, you don't lead human teams anymore. You lead human-machine teams. And, we were talking about ChatGPT a lot, but what you don't realize is that even if you are not allowing your staff to use ChatGPT, you are still influenced by algorithms on a daily basis. Because if you just Google something, Google uses thousands of machine learning algorithms in the background. So we're all affected. So basically what I'm trying to say is you cannot patch with technology and you cannot patch with people anymore. You need to patch with systems. So you need to apply this holistic approach and really think about how do I better educate my staff and how do I better protect my systems using technology. So you're using systemic approach and using this human-machine teaming approach.
Now, we haven't got long left. Are there any questions from the audience at all? I know we're almost at a coffee break. There's no questions at the moment.
Like I said, dry and boring subject.
Do you think, if a bank does come under attack, is it important that it's totally honest with its clients and customers exactly what's going on? And you've mentioned about calling the right people and getting people in place. But if a bank is has a major breach, will its clients lose trust in it if it admits to how dangerous it's been, or gain trust because of that?
Yeah, so let's not kid ourselves. Basically, decision superiority in cybersecurity and ability to sustain different types of threats and understand this risk is basically determining your competitive advantage. So the customers will choose and are already choosing funds and banks based on how secure they think these things are. Yeah, in terms of what we can, how we can look at this whole situation. Yeah, so we need to, we definitely need to understand that. Well, in order to secure the system, you need to not only secure, what you are doing in terms of compliance, but also work with your customers. And the way you work with your customers is you don't overflow them with information about cybersecurity. So we've done a study And we have a bank in UK that uses a lot of funding for cybersecurity education of customers, and they have the most reluctant customers on earth. So these guys, we call them opportunistic types. They understand the risk, but they still engage in a lot of risky activities online. And that's because they think, oh, I already know everything there is to know about phishing, so I cannot be a victim. You can be a victim. Even I can be a victim. And there is no sort of, right way of working with KPIs, because the KPIs of organizations are normally, oh, we bought this new tool from Microsoft, or we bought this new tool from Google. And we often ask them, okay, well, have you measured the before and after, like before you bought the tool and after you bought the tool? And well, in this country, obviously, you cannot keep it secret. We have GDPR regulation that says that you have to disclose this information. But again, there was a lot of talk here today about regulation, but here's an example for you how regulation can really hurt. How many people can tell me, or who can tell me, according to GDPR regulation, what is the fine that you have to pay if you don't disclose a cyber event? No, it's 20 million or 4% of your annual turnover. Now, if you are a ransomware cyber criminal trying to extort money from organization, how much money do you think you're going to ask?
Same amount?
4% of your annual turnover is the most common demand from cyber criminals, because they read the regulations. They're very good. So, yeah, and this just tells you that, obviously regulatory frameworks always a little bit behind the technology. But you need to be, guys, if you are in regulation, please think what you put in these regulations. Because sometimes you can give people ideas, and these ideas are not exactly constructive. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we're out of time, and I think everyone's due a coffee. So thank you very much for joining me today, Ganna. It's been really interesting. And please stay around for the panel after the coffee break. Thank you so much.